So last year I attended the Neuromatch Academy classes on computational neuroscience, aka theoretical neuroscience, and became inspired to sponsor other students who could not afford those classes to sponsor them this year in 2022. These courses, it's a 3 weeks course, extremely intense, included a lot of Python programming as well as knowledge about neuroscience, more specifically when it came to spikes, neural spikes, as well as some EEG data, very interesting. And in this video, I'll share with you some of the ways in which you can apply to this funding if you're interested, and how that process works. First and foremost, when it comes to computational neuroscience, the amount of knowledge you need to have when it comes to neuroscience, it doesn't need to be very extensive, as long as you know the sort of the basic and maybe a little bit more basic in terms of neuroscience. It should be okay. Same goes with programming language. In these classes, they cover Python, but you don't necessarily need to be a Python programmer. If you have a background in programming, it helps a lot. For example, my background in programming is more about, the C++ that I learned back in college when I took computer science classes, but I'm not a programmer. But you do need to have a little bit of a background in terms of coding, because that makes your job much easier, because computational neuroscience is in Python as it stands. And obviously, again, another thing I want to mention is because these classes are held during summer, July month, and they are extremely intensive. It's full-on intensive 3 weeks. So I would not recommend, if you have a full-time job, to do it at the same time, because it would essentially really not be useful, and also you may or may not be able to actually complete the courses, because there's a lot of work to be done. It's 8 hours a day, and also a lot of material to be read. In addition to that, you need to complete a project, a team project. But nonetheless, it's a lot of work, but both in terms of learning, taking those classes, as well as completing a project before they. In addition to that, I want to mention that this funding is specifically more geared towards women, underprivileged women who are not able to pay the tuition themselves, but they are very interested in computational neuroscience. Again, this is very different than experimental neuroscience. So if you're interested in experimental, which means that you need to be in lab and run the sessions, etc., then computational neuroscience is not for you. That is what Neuromatch Academy teaches, and so you kind of need to be a little bit interested in coding anyways. Neuroscientists, the next generation neuroscientists, need to know coding, need to learn coding anyways. So I highly recommend, even if you are an experimental neuroscientist today or interested in, I still recommend you getting involved with the coding, because the future of neuroscience is going to be a lot to do with analyzing the data with Python. So there are 2 stages with getting this funding. One stage is to actually get accepted into Neuromatch Academy, and then after that sending the application and then getting accepted to get the funding, because Neuromatch Academy has their own application processes, and because there is it's very popular, and it's becoming actually increasingly popular to attend those virtual classes. By the way, everything is virtual and everybody around the world can apply. So that's why they have a process to get into the school, because of the intensity. They need to make sure that all the applicants, they have enough background to actually complete those classes, because you don't want to apply and start and then drop off, which actually sometimes happens because it just feels a little bit too intense. And once you're sure that you actually got accepted into the program, then you can apply for the funding that this foundation is offering. And the process of the this foundation to actually pay for the class and do the funding is to write a letter up to 3 pages where you explain a little bit, you tell us a little bit about yourself, why you think you should get this funding, why you think that you are not able to pay the tuition, and also what you envision doing after completing these courses. With these courses, what do you see yourself basically doing with this knowledge that you have acquired? And of course, it's a little bit of you kind of making me to convincing us that that why we should give you this funding to pay for the tuition. And then we will definitely work with you in terms of the letting you know that we've received your application. An application is very simple. All you need to do is to send this letter of application, 1, 2, or 3 pages, to us, and we'll review it and we'll make sure that we get back to you on time, because if you have already gotten accepted to Neuromatch, obviously you need to make sure that you have the funding as well. Depending on how many applicants we get, obviously we'll be able to communicate with you whether you got it or not. So let's say that this year we get a lot of applicants and the competition is a lot, obviously that would change the dynamic a little bit. When it comes to timelines, the Neuromatch Academy is in July, if they have not changed their usual, so to speak, courses. But as we get closer to summer, we will know more when the applications are. And regarding the application for the funding, you can actually start sending the application already in March to us, and I'll put everything down in a document and put a link out there as well, so that you are more you can see it visually also, like which steps to take. If you choose so, you can apply to the funding first, and making sure that you are at least part of that application. And of course, getting the fund is contingent upon your submission to the Neuromatch Academy. The only thing that we ask of you for the application for your funding is that we're trying to help underprivileged women to get into cognitive sciences. So we're definitely looking for that in those demographics, and also for you to tell us what you aspire in doing. What would you use computational neuroscience for? So we want to make sure that we give it to the people who would actually benefit from this program, because it's an excellent program. You learn a lot, and computational neuroscience is huge because it has a lot of potential for a lot of revolutionary findings in the field of neuroscience, because potentially you'll be able to work with a lot of data that may or may not actually be yours. You can actually borrow data or stimulated data to work with. So we hope that you're interested in this program, and we hope that you apply. And we will also make an announcement where when the application page will go live, so that we want to make sure that you're informed. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.